Hey, what's up? This is Joshua. Welcome to the Daily Video Blog. If you've seen yesterday's video, you know that I have just started a new series that I am lazily calling DBA Design Hacks because it spontaneously came up yesterday and I am not motivated to come up with a better title. But maybe hacks in this instance works well. So one thing to point out I would really watch the first video to get an idea of the context of what it is I'm talking about. There's a playlist on YouTube for MVA Joshua that says DBA Design Hacks, so check that out. These are probably going to be more useful to designers who work in a either kind of more verbal fashion where you have ideas that are more about, I don't mean this to be dismissive at all, ideas that are more about like the substance, like design is more about the substance of the idea behind it, maybe content driven might be a good way to put it, or more typographic. And what else would I say about that? Probably less formalist, like less about how things look, or if you have more of like an experimental iterative process, I can't imagine that these will be super useful to you. If they are, that's awesome, and leave a comment because I would love to hear it. Okay, so yesterday I sort of laid out this idea about how a central part of my work is the idea of a minimum viable product in terms of what can I show a client that gets a conversation moving without doing a ton of work, and instead being really about the substance of the thinking and strategically what the project will be about. So sorry, I'm like doing a lot of ums today, but whatever, it happens. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the idea of pencil sketching. Now, I went to art school. I did like a community college thing too. I have semesters worth of drawing underneath my belt, and I'm terrible at drawing and have never been motivated to get good at it. This despite the fact that if you've ever seen Mike Perry's book Hand Job about hand-drawn lettering, I wrote the introduction and have a bunch of work in it. And if you've seen my work in the last 5-6 years, you know there is no hand-drawn type to be seen. I'm not a fan of drawing. That said, I'm a huge fan of pencil sketching. It was not ever part of my design process. Planes overhead, we're just going to talk louder. It was not ever a part of my design process as I learned how to design, or in school or anything, but there were a couple of like little light bulbs that really helped it make sense. One was seeing, this is a long time ago, I was seeing a process like catalog of Designers Republic work and seeing pencil sketches for what would later be their super digital computery looking work, which really surprised me at the time. But I should have really grasped the idea that the digital computery part was really just a wrapping for an idea. Later, another really critical one was seeing a process journal of work by Michael C. Place, an ex-Designers Republic who is kind of the man behind the studio Build, or he runs it with his wife, and she's the studio manager, he's the designer. And he talked about, and his work is super layered, super typographic, lots of print effects and whatnot. I would never have thought it was pencil driven or pencil sketched out. I would have assumed that he just sat down at a computer and started working. And he talked about that if he can articulate something in a pencil sketch, then he knows that he can do it, because these tricky print effects are actually more difficult to explain and think through with just a piece of paper and a pen than it is with a computer. So for him, it's a way to stay focused and have a sense of clarity about what it is he's trying to do. I think that plays really heavily into how I use them now. And the other one was 37 Signals, the web design firm that designed Basecamp, and now they're known as Basecamp. And they talked about when designing interfaces, they would sketch first. And the way they would sketch is they would use big sheets of graph paper, like 3M graph paper, and Sharpies. And they used the graph paper to make sure the lines were straight, not because of like a level of detail, just they wanted the lines to be straight in general. And they used the Sharpies, God, sorry, I'm like not far from an airport. They used the Sharpies so that they could stay in a very low resolution. So they didn't even want to do ballpoint pens, because what they wanted to do was sort out, like, here's the button, here's the call to action, here's the thing that explains what happens if you click the button, or here's where the no, like, or cancel would go. But they just wanted to kind of have an answer, like an idea of how those pieces interacted and roughly what their scale was. They didn't really want to get caught up in super precise type relationships or the thickness of a rule line. Instead, it becomes, there will be a rule line here. And then the other thing that they did that I thought was really kind of interesting and admirable is they said they would make the pencil sketch. Once they agreed on what was the idea to investigate, they would crumple it up and throw it in the recycling. So the idea had to be super simple in order to carry through to the next phase of what they were doing, which was to start coding it. How I use pencil sketches is I use them for a combination of those two things: the build idea of being able to articulate something, and the 37 signals idea of being able to have it be kind of simplified. I gotta hold this in my other hand. This arm's finally beat the dust and it's tired as hell. I'm gonna wear out the joint. So what was I saying? So for me, the reason to use pencil sketches, there's a few. One is that I'm not bogged down in details. I don't care about italics versus like in body copy. I can articulate very quickly, like, is this type serif or sans serif? Is this type condensed, or is it uppercase, or is it lowercase, or whatever? And even then, I might only be concerned with, there will be type here, and this is what it will say. Oftentimes, my goal with a pencil sketch is I will try to account for every piece of information that I want on the page, so that when I sit down at a computer, I actually want to be done making decisions. I want to get to the pencil sketch and then tighten it up a bit. And one of the things I like about the pencil sketch is it provides a map that actually tells me when to stop. Once I have that pencil sketch, if I've made something that looks like it and it looks pretty good, then I can stop and move on to executing the next one. And that's another reason I like the pencil sketches. I can generate lots of them very quickly. And then when I sit down to sort of design in earnest, I might be able to put together 3 to 5 projects, 3 to 5 concepts in a day. I mean, I want some time ahead of time to do research and kind of thinking and let it marinate or whatever. But otherwise, I can really, I can bang stuff out sort of quickly, and it gives me more time to actually design something and then sit on it, give it a day or two, and see if it's still good, or if it seems like it's unclear, if there's questions that might need to be answered about it. So that's how I use pencil sketches, and they totally vary. So right now I'm working on a project. I don't even know if the people I work with know that everything they see from me generates in a pencil sketch first. And then I do these quick sort of designed versions of it, regardless of how simple or complex it is. I find this super helpful if I'm working on stuff for brands where there's like a style guide, because then the pencil sketch is solely about like placement and ideas, or like what type of photograph might go in somewhere. The other thing I will do is sometimes assemble kind of visual reference and scrap, and then I will make pencil sketches that utilize bits and pieces of that, so I can think about, like, okay, I'll probably use this kind of typeface here, maybe this kind of typeface here. I'm thinking about this sort of texture in this area. And that scrap even helps make the pencil sketches sort of more descriptive. And in my personal work, or like in MVA projects, very often a presentation, like for the soap factory, would be a pencil sketch, terrible pencil sketch, because I am terrible, with a description of the idea, and then a number of reference materials, so I can say, so here's like this image roughly captures what the composition is like, this roughly captures type style, this roughly captures color. It will all change. One of the things I like about it is that if I show someone the pencil sketch, it can only get better, which is kind of a cool feeling. So I think I talked last night a little bit about how very often you show clients things that are finished, and they get worse as the meddling happens. And like, no offense, clients of the world, you know, I love you, but things get worse as they get sort of messed up and dumbed down. The pencil sketch is cool because the thing gets better, because anything is better than the shitty pencil sketch I made. So I use them really powerfully, I use them quite a bit. It's been a super powerful tool for me to make better work, I think, to explore more ideas more quickly. And so even if I only show a client 2 things, I know that behind those 2 might have been 10 or 20 ideas that I really tried to think through before throwing them away or before settling on these 2, which is kind of cool. Okay, so that's today's video. Tomorrow we'll talking about another one of these sort of minimum viable product ideas. If you have any questions, leave a comment on YouTube, or if you see this on Facebook or Twitter, leave a comment there and just make sure you tag me on Twitter. I'm MVA Joshua. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to answer any questions or also expand on any of this stuff. These are off the cuff, so there is no plan or order to any of this. So if you feel like you need more context to understand something, ask a question and I'll talk about it in the next one. All right, cool. Have a happy new year. Thanks.